This episode is brought to you by Rosie and American Express. Rosie is a digital platform that connects restaurants to restaurant lovers by elevating dining experiences, providing original industry content, and helping to fill some of the country's most exciting dining rooms. Because restaurants have always been more than just places to eat. The amazing world of restaurants is just a few taps away in the Rosie app and at Rosie.com.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
I mean, obviously there's so much grief and sadness in losing someone, but there is a lot of joy and celebration of remembering them and their sort of impact on the people around them. And it's such a gift that that shows up on a gravestone. I just find that so beautiful.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Eliza Barbanel. Rosie Grant is the creator of Ghostly Archive, a project documenting the real-life phenomenon of recipes inscribed on tombstones in cemeteries around the world. After years of seeking out these immortalized dishes, she's released a truly singular cookbook, To Die For, a cookbook of gravestone recipes. Today on the show, we chat about her research and reporting process and some of her favorite gravestone recipes.
Also on the show, I catch up with Vanessa Anderson, known widely online as the Grocery Goblin. Vanessa writes a terrific Substack and posts social videos, all in celebration of international grocery stores. Vanessa is based in Los Angeles, home to a great grocery store scene, and we talk about her work and some of her favorite places to shop. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Rosie Grant, this is Taste. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to chat with you all about gravestone recipes and your new book. I think this genre of recipe writing and sharing is so fascinating to me, and I've been following your work with Ghostly Archive for years. So the fact that there's a book is really exciting to me. And I guess to start, I'm wondering if you could just speak a little bit to how you first learned about or encountered gravestone recipes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, similar. It's been a very exciting process to learn more about this. I first got started when I was interning at a cemetery in Washington, D.C. It was during the pandemic. And I was just in general very inspired by memorial stones that other people had. And this was even before I learned about gravestone recipes. And then after starting my account that at first was just what's it like to intern at a cemetery, it then moved on eventually to the first gravestone recipe, which was a woman buried in Brooklyn, New York. And after I tried her recipe, I learned there were several other people that had tried it. And I'm honestly shocked to be 40 recipes later and still learning about more of them out there.
Can we take a step back? What does it mean to intern at a cemetery? I'm fascinated.
It was, the most interesting and life-changing experience. I loved going to cemeteries as a young person. My parents are both ghost tour guides. So I was familiar with them as sort of spaces to walk through. And, my relatives are all buried in traditional Western-style cemeteries. But for me, interning at a cemetery just showed how little I knew about the death industry. I didn't know that people put interesting memorials onto their graves. I didn't know that there were cemetery tours. I didn't realize, basically my job was I was working in the archives. So I was documenting gravestones, geolocating them, and then making mini tours out of them for some of the more famous residents buried there. I was just, every day I learned something new. I learned about preservation work, about how they have this whole preservation team, about how to take care of cleaning a gravestone, how to mow the lawn around gravestones. It was just, it was the most interesting experience.
I also love going to cemeteries, so I'm all in on this. And it feels to me like you were like born to do this kind of hearing about your parents and the kind of like expertise that you have. I guess I'm curious, like once you encountered that first recipe, I believe it was a spritz cookie recipe, right, at Greenwood here in Brooklyn.
Hmm. Yep, that's right.
Like, what did it feel like to encounter that? And then how did you kind of get inspired to try to seek out more gravestones that had recipes carved into them?
I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So, to that point, I had never seen any like, I'd seen funny messages. I'd started seeing more portraits. I'd even seen like QR codes and funny quotes. But seeing a recipe to me was it was just inspiring because it felt like such a gift. And so, I mean, the first thing I thought was, whoa, I've never seen that before. And then the second thought was, I wonder what those cookies taste like. And so when I cooked it, I pretty much just followed, like, there's no instructions on Naomi's gravestone. So I just followed the ingredients the way you would like a sugar cookie. I didn't know what a spritz cookie was even at the time. And when I posted the process, so I started this TikTok account just sort of documenting memorials. All of these people were like, oh, you're supposed to use a cookie press for that. And also, my mom makes these cookies every year. And, my grandmother died recently and we still make her spritz cookies. So there were so many personal food stories that came out of it. And so all of that came just from, someone putting their recipe onto stone.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, like the kind of limitations that exist on a gravestone. Obviously, you can't have the same degree of instruction that like a typical cookbook would have, just kind of due to space constraints. And I certainly want to talk more about how you kind of adapted these recipes and put them in a book format. But I guess before we get into that, I'm wondering how you began finding other gravestones that had recipes on them.
Yeah, I mean, it was all very organic. So Naomi, the spritz cookie in Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, she was featured on a blog called Atlas Obscura. And Atlas Obscura, just in general, is a wonderful resource for cemetery stories, gravestone stories. I know plenty of cemetery TikTokers are always referencing it. So she was featured there. And when I was Googling learn more about Naomi herself, I learned like a local news story for a woman named Kay Andrews, who was buried in Utah and had her fudge recipe popped up. And then in another newspaper archive, a woman named Maxine Minster, who has her Christmas cookie recipe popped up. So they basically were just from Google searches for, I'd say, the first 8 or so people. There was a blog post on a woman buried in Nome, Alaska, and that heard her recipe. And then another person was featured in, again, like a local news story. So I started at first basically just Google Docking, collecting them. And then when I got to about 10 recipes, the families of different people started reaching out. So, one girl, her mother is buried in Iowa, and she was like, oh my gosh, I thought my mom was the only person who did this. And another family, they reached out with their mother's carrot cake recipe. And so now at this point, 40 recipes later, they've all come in different ways. Some of them were just cemetery enthusiasts who were like, "Oh, I hear you like this thing. um, here's another photo of one." And then basically, my research process would be, I would, try to geolocate it. I'd find their Find a Grave, which Find a Grave is sort of like a Wikipedia of gravestones. And then I would find their obituary, and then from there, reach out to family members just to see if I could include them in the project.
I love like all of the resources at your disposal and then actually reaching out to the family to talk to them. How did those conversations go?
They were, again, all over the map. I feel like, in the early days, so my first year or so of doing this, I felt very guilty bothering them of just like, hey, is it cool if I heard about your mom and, how do you feel? And so in some cases, I would say about 10 or so folks were like, is this a scam? Who are you? How did you hear about my mother's personal gravestone? And like, how like, is this possible? And then usually we would get on the phone and have, a phone call or two just to kind of like talk about the project before we even got further than that. And then usually from there, they'd be like, okay, yeah, like let's do an official interview now. And so I have a series of questions that's mostly about food history and this person's life and, how did this gravestone even come to be? And like, why did they decide to even do this? What was food to them in their life? And so we would work our way there. Some of the calls, I mean, actually, I should say a lot of the calls, it would be 2 hours in and they'd be like, you have to talk to Aunt Gladys or you have to talk to my cousin Jimmy. And it would turn into like 4 or 5 other family calls, which was really lovely. And so, yeah, basically from there, I would create transcriptions. I would create summaries. And then from there, I would actually write out the piece that got sent to each of the family members to review. And yeah, I mean, it was a very multi-year process. Some of the families, even for them, they were very close to grief, like their loved one had just recently passed away. And so they were more comfortable with just either messaging or emailing and then just sort of doing like a more short version of the interview that way. I tried to sort of meet everyone where they were at, whatever they were comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think I've seen online you also would make the dish and bring it to the gravestone, right?
Yeah, which that process in the beginning, it started very organically too, in the sense of like I was living in DC and Naomi wasn't too far away from me. So it wasn't, and I have family also in Greenwood, so it was easy to get up there. And when it came to visiting her, I was thinking about what flowers would she like. I hadn't met with her family at that time. And so when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I should make her cookie recipe. That feels like something that just feels more personal to her. And when I did it for her, and then I visited a woman named Connie, who's buried a little bit further north of her. And from there, it was just like, well, if I'm in Utah, I might as well visit this person. Or if I'm in Arkansas, I might as well visit this person. And then after about maybe 8 or so people, I was like, I think I need to visit everybody. And yeah, in some cases, the families would meet me there and cook with me. In some cases, the families had already moved away. And so I would be on the phone with them when I visited the cemetery. And yeah, I was kind of all over the place. And the cookies were very easy to travel with. I was laughing at myself when I was trying to bring ice cream to someone's grave in Maine. And she lived very, very far away from any large grocery stores. So I was like driving in the woods with ice cream that was melting. But it felt nice. It just felt like you know, a way to have just a moment with the person at their memorial spot.
Yeah, I think it's like the most beautiful way of honoring that person. And I think that component, when I was kind of first encountering your work online, it really kind of illustrated the humanity of like, this is not just the way this person wants to be remembered, but it's a way that they can participate in other people's lives still.
Yeah, I think exactly that. Like, there's so much, I mean, obviously, there's so much grief and sadness in losing someone, but there is a lot of joy and celebration of remembering them and their sort of impact on the people around them. And it's such a gift that, like, that shows up on a gravestone. I just find that so beautiful. And there's something, a sense about place, too, of like when I'm in these towns, like, yeah, when I was visiting a woman named Marion who's in Maine, I would go to the local diner, I would check out the local park that she would walk by and this really beautiful lake, or I go to their local library that they would stop at. And it gave me a much better sense of the person.
I want to talk a little bit about the kinds of recipes or maybe even the kinds of people that you feel like constitute the book. We've talked a lot about dessert. It seems like maybe there's a lot of sweets, but I'm curious if there are any other kinds of like trends that you noticed in terms of what recipes are being preserved in this kind of way.
Oh my gosh, yeah, lots of desserts. When we were making the cookbook sections, I was like, well, one section's just desserts. And so we ended up breaking down the desserts into smaller sections just to, yeah, to cover it all. And in some sense, yes, the desserts of it, this was something that was like a special treat that they would make. And these were celebrations and birthdays and holidays, which, desserts are very well represented by. In a lot of cases, too, like the American cookie recipe is pretty forgiving. You don't need a lot of instructions, and people can kind of get the gist of it. So that is a nice way to work around the limitations of an epitaph. You only have so much space to do this on. In some cases, so I would say like general trends, yes, baked goods are the most frequent. It is mostly women, though there are a few guys that are also, doing this. And it's pretty much in the last 20-ish years. So a fairly recent trend of people putting not only recipes, but also funny quotes or photos or just something really personalized onto a grave marker.
Definitely. And I think obviously desserts are a big focal point, but I was very struck by the like cheese dip recipe. I thought that was kind of fun.
I love that cheese dip recipe. Okay, so that's like one of my favorite stories. Kate was one of the people, like the family members that reached out to me, and she was like, this was the woman, Deb Nelson's daughter. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I thought my mom was the only crazy one who did this," and sent me the Red Lantern cheese dip recipe, which is on this woman named Deb Nelson, her grave in Iowa. When Deb was a younger person, she was a waitress at this restaurant called the Red Lantern, and her soon to be husband would come in every day and order this from her. And she was always the waitress that would serve him. And they started flirting, and he asked her out, and eventually they got married. They had their wedding reception at the Red Lantern. And so this cheese dip was such a like celebration of their relationship, which was just so beautiful and sweet. And then during Christmas every year, Deb would make this cheese dip and hand it out to all of her friends. And you would get a jar with the dip, and you had to return your jar or you wouldn't get more cheese dip the following year. And even when I went to Iowa and I met with Kate, her daughter, and I met some of her friends who lived in the area, they were like, "Oh, we all waited for Deb's secret cheese dip, which she would never share the recipe in her lifetime." And she would always say, "You can have this like over my dead body," basically.
That's so good. Do you know if people knew she was going to put it on her gravestone or if that came as a surprise?
So with her kids, she would say it to them like sort of jokingly, like, "Yeah, like you can give this out at my funeral," kind of thing. And but when she passed away and she died, fairly young, she basically her son and daughter were just talking about how do you represent someone who was like so larger than life. She had so many stories about her, like she was so beloved by her local town. She was a very popular local radio DJ, and so they were trying to think about something that would like encapsulate that, and they were thinking of this recipe of like literally she would say like, "You can hand out this recipe at my funeral." And they were like, "Oh, we have to put her recipe onto her gravestone. Like she's been telling us this all along." And her friend, so Deb's very good friend, was actually the person who carved the gravestone. Like she's a local gravestone and memorial maker. And so she was the one, she was like, "Oh, I finally got my friend's recipe. I would always ask for it, but I got it when the family came to me and said, we're going to put Deb's cheese dip recipe onto her grave."
That's such an incredible story. I'm curious at what point in the process of tracking down and preserving these recipes you started thinking about it as a book.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, I was shocked to get to 10 recipes just because even the first one with Naomi, I thought, "Oh my goodness, that is so cool. One person did this." And then when I got to 10 recipes, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is an interesting collection." And I was thinking, like, my driving force of this was more as, like, a community archive of, like, just a shared thing that a number of strangers all decided to do. And then when I got to about 20 recipes, some editors started reaching out, and I think it still didn't really feel like a book because a lot of editors were saying like, "Oh, like, let us know and reach back out to us when you have 100 recipes." And I was like, I can't imagine that ever happening, at least not for like 60 more years. But then when I got to 30, I connected with my current editor, Jacqueline, and she basically was like, "No, this will be an unusual cookbook. This will feature the stories of each person. This will be more of like a keepsake of and like a snapshot into the person behind the recipe." So in her mind, she was like, "I think if we can get to 40 recipes," which even then I was like, "I don't know, maybe." And so the fact that we literally, by the end of my deadline, had just gotten to 40 recipes, I was so shocked. I never thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because I think like there are probably now people who through your work are more interested in putting a recipe on their gravestone than they were before.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg at this point, and I always laugh. There's a family who is featured in the book, and I'd learned about it because the daughter of this woman who had a really good kasha vernishkas, it's sort of this pasta dish on her gravestone. When her daughter wrote this, who's a food writer in Minneapolis, she wrote a story about her mom and their family decision to put this recipe onto the gravestone. So I read the article and I reached out to her and I was like, "Hey, I'm doing this project. Could I include your mom?" And she wrote back to me and was like, "Are you sure you're the right person to be doing this?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I?" Like, yeah, maybe I'm not. I mean, this started from like a cemetery perspective. Maybe I should have been more this or more that. And so eventually we got on the phone and we're talking through it. And she said it again. She's like, are you sure you're the right person to be putting together this cookbook? And I was like, do you have someone in mind? I would be so happy to work with them. I want this to be right. And she was like, well, there's this TikToker who does these gravestone recipes. And I got the idea from her. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sharon, that's me. But I'm so glad that she had asked the question of like, who should be doing this? And so they had gotten the idea to do this basically from other people who had decided to do this. And they had just kind of learned about the universe of it.
Through your account, they learned about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Respectfully, I was about ready to fight this woman. I'm like, how can she be saying you're not the right person to be doing this? You've been like in the trenches, like finding all of these recipes.
And I was even like, like I'm sure there's some really good food writers out there who like maybe I could like partner with them. But I was like, I don't know if there's anyone who knows as much at this point, but I'm open to anything. And then she was like, well, you should work with this TikToker. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I should.
Well, also
That
like
is a good point.
it's interesting because she, is a food writer. She has that background, but I would imagine like
Yeah.
you weren't necessarily trying to improve upon or change these recipes. You were just trying to kind of preserve them and then the larger context of the life of this person and the life of that recipe.
Exactly so. And that was a big conversation as the book came out, because of course I'm having food editors reviewing it. A lot of the gravestones, there is very limited. And, at the end of the day, it's a personal family recipe. So I focused on the archiving side of it, of I really didn't want to change the recipe. In some cases, like for instance, with Naomi, there's no instructions. And so I worked with the family to get instructions to get it as close to as the way Naomi would make it. In some cases, like there's a fudge recipe, which is the woman named Kay, who by the end of it, I I don't know exactly how she did her technique 'cause she didn't use a candy thermometer, which to me, fudge making is not the easiest, especially because she would use 2% milk, not evaporated milk, the way you might in like a modern recipe. At least, the recipes that have been successful of fudge that I've tried. But like at the end of it, I'm like, no, I really want to get it as close to how she made it, of like, it was just years of practice to get something into the softball stage. So I must have made that fudge like 60 times trying to get it to be as close. Because the first time I made it, I was like, it just didn't work. And so then I tried it with these like sort of more modern additions. And then I talked to the daughter and she's like, I'm sorry, she just didn't make it that way. And so we changed it back to her version with just a lot of like details of technique. And so, yeah, it was a very interesting part of the process to like try to preserve their version of the recipe.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you think about these people who have been making these recipes their entire lives. I think a lot of people have had the experience of asking an older relative how to make something, and the instructions are very loose. Like a pinch of that, or like beat it until it
Yes.
looks right. And I think some of that comes with the expertise, and then some of it almost feels generational. Like when I saw the Gravestone recipe for the spritz cookie, because I live here in Brooklyn and saw it there. I was like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
maybe everybody back in the day knew how to cream butter and sugar together, or like to use a cookie mold. Like maybe that's kind of knowledge from a different era that we just don't have anymore.
It's exactly that. And even like when you look at an older cookbook that a lot of these folks, like their kids still inherited. And so these cookbooks, like, yes, it's like cream or sift or beat together. And like there is a true technique that people would just know or would be featured elsewhere in the book. And so when it came to putting onto the gravestone, only so much text fits onto it. The technique itself, some of the family members have even said, like, oh, I've never been able to recreate it exactly the way she made it. Like, we're taste testing it, we're trying to get it just right. But I think there's something really beautiful about that, too. Like, if anything, it's just a very personal reflection. We all have that recipe that we grew up with, that we're very nostalgic to, that maybe our parents made for us as kids. And like all we want is to have, whether it's chicken soup or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that our parent made us, or our loved one or a sibling, like whoever. And it's just like trying to recreate that is such a personal journey.
Yeah, and some of these recipes, like Naomi's spritz cookie, she didn't even actually create the recipe, right? And you write about how it was a newspaper clipping, but she kind of adopted it as hers, and then in the family, it was thought of as hers.
Exactly so, yeah, and it's a very funny story too, and I feel like I'll get comments from people being like, "Is it okay to make someone else's recipe?" This sort of whole genre of secret recipes and literally taking a recipe to a grave, like, people passing away and never sharing it, and it feels like in a lot of cases, just from the anecdotal stories I've heard, it's because the recipe was a Betty Crocker recipe or a Duncan Hines, or like it was a pretty standard or normal recipe, but it was made special by being a secret recipe. And so in some cases, yeah, the family member, like in the case of the cheese dip, she never gave it because it was her special Christmas recipe that everyone would look forward to. And then after she passed away, she gave it on so that people could still remember her. But yeah, she did not give it out in life. And same for Naomi as well. She did not give that recipe out during her lifetime.
Yeah, my family has a brownie recipe. That was my great Auntie Claire's brownie recipe that we all make in the family, but nobody shares like outside of the family. But my
Oh my
I
gosh.
know. I'll tell you later off the mic, but
Thank you. I
what
won't share it.
what I will say about it is it's a very not too sweet, fudgy,
Ugh,
undecorated brownie, which I think is great and my family loves. But my
wow.
uncle put it in the brownie competition at the like Iowa State Fair one year because he was there. We all were like, this is going to clean up. It's the best brownie recipe in the world. And, completely like last place, like not honored at all because like the other brownies at the Iowa State Fair were these really kind of, ornamental, like mix in cakey, like, complete
Mm,
opposite of this very like plain, not too sweet brownie. And I think that kind of gets at this other idea of personal taste or family taste, right? And the things that we
mm.
prize as being so important, like in a different context, they don't really kind of read the same or taste the same.
It's exactly that, and what a shame to those poor judges because, like, I would take the, like, less sweet fudgy brownie any day, but yeah, it's so true, and, like, it'll be interesting to hear, like, a lot of people have been getting comments of, like, "I can't wait to make every single recipe, and these are gonna be my favorite recipes," and I'm like, "I hope so," and it's okay if it's not too, like, I think it's more the tradition of, like, how do we preserve recipes? There is a very exciting element to trying different recipes that have come from a gravestone, like, objectively, it's so cool. It's just such an interesting way to be given information about a person, but then at the end of the day of, like, it just makes us appreciate, like, yeah, that personal like, so your family has this brownie recipe. I can't remember if this what came up the last time we chatted, but my family's, like, personal recipe is this yellow cake that my grandmother would make for all of our birthdays. It's my favorite yellow cake. She would make it with homemade chocolate icing and sprinkles every single holiday. All 32 grandkids would get this for every birthday for years. And when she died, we were all so sad that we would never have her yellow cake birthday cake again. And my mom was like, it's just box cake. Like, there's nothing fancy about this. It's literally just yellow box cake from Duncan Hines. And for us, we were like, no, we'll never have grandma's cake again. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be anything fancy for it to be really meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something else that I thought was interesting in the book is in the beginning, you have this kind of section about encouraging people to be documenting their own food history. And you have guiding questions you could ask a family member, kind of suggestions on how to make a personal archive. What inspired you to include that in the book?
I think exactly kind of like what we were saying of our own personal food recipes. And again, this was born out of like I was in. So the reason why I was interning at a cemetery to begin with was I was in library science school studying to be a librarian slash archivist. I was taking a lot of community archive classes. And I was very struck by the need for like personal story preservation, particularly food stories. So as I was featuring gravestones on TikTok, I was getting like, I've probably gotten thousands of comments at this point or personal messages and things to the effect of like, "Oh, my dad died last year. I wish I'd gotten his chili recipe." Or, "My grandmother passed away when I was a kid and we've been trying to recreate her cake or her brownies or whatever the recipe is." And so these things are very ephemeral and we will lose them if we don't write them down. And I think also that, this was coming out of the pandemic where a lot more maybe as a whole society conscious of death and our own mortality. And I think it was like it struck me to be aware of like it's okay to have these conversations. They're uncomfortable. We don't want to talk about it, but like there's something really healthy about having these like discussions with our loved ones of like, hey, can we make your recipe because this is important to you? Or, food might not be the thing, but like maybe it's music, maybe it's movies. Like, how do you want to be remembered? What is your thing? And document it. And if we don't do that, it just gets harder to do over time.
Yeah, I think it's really special that I think this book inevitably would prompt these questions of, what would I put on my gravestone, or what does
Yeah.
your taste say about you? So I feel like including it in that kind of way makes a lot of sense. And I guess I'm curious, it seems like you obviously were testing these recipes a lot when you were working on them, but I'm curious if your perspective on cooking or baking has kind of changed at all since you've begun this process of working on Ghostly Archive.
Oh my gosh, so much appreciation for our home cooks. Just like, and because again, I think like I've done like some food interviews with these like professional chefs who, spent their entire life cooking at these beautiful techniques in these beautiful kitchens. And like, that's incredible. Like, I'm obsessed with people like that. And then on the flip side, too, there are people who are just like everyday cooks who really love food. They use food to show love, they use it to, celebrate someone's birthday or to celebrate a holiday and bring people together. And there's a real, like a labor side and gift side to it as well. And so I think like I've just, yeah, I don't know, every day I just feel like I have so much appreciation for even my own family members who like use food to not only nourish me, but like give me some of my best childhood memories, to connect me with others. I like food best when I'm like with a loved one or a friend and we're having dinner or we're cooking. And I think it's just given me a lot more of a sense of like how it connects us together. Even thinking about taste, like I just think I think like I'm not a very like I don't need the fanciest food to be satisfied. Like I love a fancy sushi meal. I love like a very well plated dish, but I also love like a hot dish and a casserole and something that's just like made together and you get to share it and like eat it together. Like both are equally important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious, now that the book is out and the 40 recipes have been found, like what is the future of Ghostly Archive?
Well, since the book draft got turned in, 10 new recipes have actually come my way. So I'm shocked that that happened because here I was being like at 10 recipes where I'm like, wow, I found them all. And now I'm at 50 recipes. So I have new people to interview, I have new people to learn about. I just learned about my first European one, which is in Amsterdam. So I'm excited to learn more about this person. So yeah, I just have quite a lot more to learn about about the cemetery world in general. I think for next steps for me, I would love to do a death doula training just to learn more about, um, you know, working with people going through grief and being mindful of healthy tactics for talking about these things. Obviously, food is such a healthy topic for the living, and so it feels like a really entry point for these things that it might be a little more taboo to talk about. Um, so maybe between that and working on a second cookbook will be the future for Ghostly Archive.
Yeah, I love to hear it. And I can't help but suspect that after the book is in people's hands, there will be even more people who are inspired to put recipes on their own gravestones in the future. And to close
Mhm.
today, I want to do a little rapid fire game with you. So I'm just going to ask you a couple questions and have you play some favorites, if that sounds good.
I love it.
Okay, your favorite cemetery that you've been to?
Ooh, Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York.
Why Greenwood?
Oh my gosh, everything they do is perfect. I mean, it has all your classics. It's old, it's beautiful. You walk through the gates. They have a parakeet colony that lives in there. They've lived in there since the 80s. So you are just like charmed by these cute little birds that are just yapping away as you go through. They do really good preservation work. They do a lot of death education programming to get people more comfortable with topics of death and dying. They have a death doula. They have pretty much events almost every single night of the week. And it feels so welcoming to people as they're going in, whether they are curious or grieving or whatever feeling they need to experience, I feel like Greenwood is a great place for that.
Definitely. Okay, your favorite Gravestone recipe that you've tried so far?
I mean, they're all my favorites, obviously. I feel like they're all perfect. Definitely the ones that I've made the most frequently are ones that I'm nostalgic to myself. So there's a woman named Annabelle who has a snickerdoodle cookie recipe, and she's buried in California. My mom made snickerdoodle cookies when I was a kid, so it's one of my favorite cookies. And Annabelle's cookies, the recipe makes like 100 cookies. It's such a classic grandmother dish. So you will have cookies for days, and they're so good.
I love that. What you would say is the most unexpected Gravestone recipe you've encountered?
Unexpected. The Jack Daniels marinade, I think, is a really cool one. It was on the grave of a guy named Jono, who he owned a local bar, and this was his particular marinade. I also just in general like love that his grave looks like it's handwritten, like in his handwriting. And a marinade is like just there's no other marinades. It's also a gentleman, which I think is cool. It has a photo next to him of him grilling, which I really love. And it's just like it's something that like I want this gravestone recipe on a sunny summer day, like with corn and having like a beer or something with it. So I love everything about that recipe.
I love that. And my final question is maybe obvious, but what recipe would you put on your gravestone?
It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. For right now, I would put a nostalgic recipe to me. I love clam linguine. And I love everything clam based. I loved clam based things as a kid. My dad is a really good cook when it comes to just like throwing clams into a pot and with white wine and butter and parsley. And it's so good. So if I had to pick one today, that's what I would pick.
I love that. I think we need more savory gravestone recipes, it seems. So
We do.
I'll keep it in mind for myself in the future as
There
well.
you go.
And thank you so much, Rosie. This has been so great.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was such a delight.
Vanessa Anderson, welcome to This Is Taste. It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. Thanks so much for having me.
We're in LA, and I was looking at our schedule, and I'm relatively new to what you're up to, but I had to reach out because I'm fascinated in your approach looking at international grocery stores around Los Angeles, some of your background as a line cook in New York, and just like you're great at what you do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I manifested this by, I think you posted like a Kit Kat or something. And I was like, I'm going to respond to this because I want to have a longer conversation with Matt.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you reaching out, and please reach out if you have comments about snack foods. I'm always down.
For sure.
I'm always posting away. Before we get to talk about Grocery Goblin, I have to ask, we're here in Los Angeles. I'm having a wonderful time at restaurants. Vanessa, where are you going out right now? What's exciting to you?
I'm going to this place in Alhambra called Wayang Halal, Wayang. It's an Indonesian restaurant, and it is just fantastic. And it was recommended to me by a friend who doesn't even live here anymore. It's run by these like really sweet women. I wrote a little thing for Emily's plugs about it. And I think I said like the coconuts are always cold and the vegetables always look like they've given up. And I don't know, like they have like a really like crispy, snappy, like gado salad where the vegetables are all like kind of like lightly blanched but still have the snap to it that's like just like weighted down with this blanket of like really delicious peanut sauce. They have everything is kind of like surrendering to this like deeply spiced like curry situation.
Sambals and everything.
Yeah, and then peppered in with these like really punchy sambals. And I have it on good authority that they can like use the support. And I just think it's an amazing place that like nobody knows about. And there's always parking and there's always seats available. And I just think it needs to be full all the time.
I'm so happy you mentioned that place. We were out here last December doing work for Visit California, and we were touring SGV, and the Wayang was on the list, but it was closed the day we were there.
Totally.
So we missed it during that great episode in SGV that you can go back to and listen to. I love that rec. Are you out in SGV a bit?
Yeah, I try to go out there as much as I can. I really like it out there. And I also like to drive.
Yeah.
And so I like to just like drive around and wander around out there. There's just like some cool, like, I don't know, LA is so fascinating to me for so many different reasons. But I I really love like the signage that has kind of like emerged from the sprawl and the weird little pockets that have emerged from the sprawl. And I think you can see that in like all of the city's valleys very explicitly.
But you weren't born here.
No, I was born in upstate New York.
You're born upstate New York, so you're relatively new to living in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I love that point of view. As a new person who really loves food, and you're a cook yourself, a chef. So tell me about just moving here and getting into that driving vibe to discover food.
For sure. I moved here 2.5 years ago. I had never had a car before that, so I found like a deep like independence in my vehicle. Named My vehicle's name is Jasmine. It's a
I love
Toyota
that you named your car.
Corolla.
It's good.
There, the vehicle's named Jasmine because I used to go shop at the Glendale Whole Foods, and they planted jasmine all over the parking lot, and I used to take my little kitchen shears and snip it off and like put it in my dashboard, because my whole car would like smell like jasmine for the day. And then it would like wilt by the next day. But anyway, I don't know. I found it very liberating to be so mobile. And I was living in Berlin before that, and then New York City before that. So cities with amazing public transportation, which is incredible, not to be understated. But like, there's something really special about being in your car. There's something special about calling your mom in your car and listening to music in your car, and just being able to whip around really easily. So yeah, I don't know. It's like one of the reasons, one of the ways I found myself exploring the city was through, driving to all these different grocery stores.
I think it's magical when you can just dial up Google Maps and 20 minutes later you're in this new neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And you didn't have to like wait for the 7.
Totally. Totally. Although like there is this like beauty in like what happens when you're waiting for the 7.
Agree fully.
Yeah. So but you can't really have both.
You can't. I think, but also for grocery shopping, we'll get to that. Like having a car allows you to buy things and not have to put them in IKEA bags.
Totally.
The big blues. You ever use the big blues?
I definitely use the big blues. I use the carts in the city. I called it the perpetual schlep, which was like part of the reason I cited when I moved. I was like, I'm done with the perpetual schlep. I'm leaving. New York's fried. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
No more schlepping for me. And I'm now, of course, schlepping in a different way because life is a perpetual schlep.
Yeah, Jasmine is filled to the brims.
For sure.
With discoveries. Why did you move here?
I wanted to give the West Coast a try.
Cool.
It was always kind of fascinating to me. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be more than that.
Totally.
That's great.
Seems to be like the siren call for a lot of people to come out here.
Yeah, a lot of New Yorkers are out here in the last 5 years, especially in food.
For sure.
Let's talk about your interest in international grocery stores. Just tell me what caused you to create Grocery Goblin and take like a very, I would say, meticulous approach and a very reporter's approach to these amazing spaces. I love that you think deeply about them, you write about them, and you know a lot about food, and it really shows in your Substack and on Reels. But what interested you in it?
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I guess if I were to go briefly way back, I used to have this book that I used to read when I was a kid called Hungry Planet. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I don't know it.
It's written by this guy and photographed by this guy. I think his name is Peter Menzel. But it's a book in which he would go around to all these different countries and take photos of families in their kitchens with like every grocery item spread out in front of them.
Cool.
And I was fascinated with this book. I could not get enough of it. I was like, I constantly had my nose in this book. And then I guess like the fascination just kind of like continued. And it's part of what really inspired the project and a lot of different facets of the project. I originally started the Instagram page as a way for me to archive like cool packaging design because I'm obsessed with different types of graphic design that different cultures use to market their products. And then when I moved to LA, I was private chefing for a while, and I was just in the grocery store, all different types of grocery stores, a lot. And I started noticing just different design elements or little kind of like weird clashes of or mashes up of these cultures kind of like running into each other that is like so prevalent in LA. And so I started taking some videos. I made like one TikTok that was kind of a come with me like thing. And it went like niche LA viral. And I was like, oh, well, what if I take this a little bit more seriously? I've always been really interested in culinary. Always known that that's like the industry that I wanted to settle in. But I've also really been interested in writing and storytelling and, documentary filmmaking. So this was kind of TikTok, really low barrier to entry way to do that and to have it seen in this way. So I basically think of the project as a way, it's like a kind of indexing project and like short form doc project in which I use the lens of the grocery store to examine American consumer and culinary culture.
Totally see that. Well said. Really beautifully said. And I love that we're using Come With Me voice. Like,
Totally.
Come with me.
I like, I've departed from the come with me voice because I think like TikTok, while I'm obsessed with like slop and just like manufactured content, like theoretically, I love analyzing it. I think it's really interesting. And I think it's like a really good reflection of where we're at culturally. But, and I think it's not to be dismissed, but I do think that like TikTok can be a serious platform and it can be a platform where you can just like take a thesis and really explore it and people will be interested in that.
And I think it's not just sloppy. Well said. It definitely is a version of cultural anthropology. It's journalism, even, you could say.
Totally.
Like you're doing journalism here.
Absolutely. I would definitely categorize it as
and you could effectively teach a class about it too. It's like, that's what journalism is today. And if you're too snobby to reject that, then like, fuck you, because it's really important for food writing to not be stuck with text on the page.
Certainly. Yeah.
I want to hear about the private chefing. Like, give us some examples of the grocery stores you were going to just by name. I'd love to give our listeners just a little bit of a survey of Los Angeles, these amazing places.
Yeah, for sure. The first video that I made that kind of like popped off, for lack of a better term.
Popped off? Like we're talking like million? We're talking about 500,000?
No, wait, probably less, honestly.
Whatever.
But that's fine.
Popping off can be like, 25K.
Totally.
I mean, listen,
what is popping
what
off?
Let's analyze popping off metrics.
Popping off, yeah, totally. It's this place called Epicurus Gourmet. It's in North Hollywood, and it's just like a warehouse of like gourmet foods. They have like a really crazy Edmund Fallow mustard collection situation. They have like the Beurre like going on, the minis and like everything. They have like pretty amazing cheeses and charcuterie, stuff like that. So it was like a place that I had been going to for events and private clients. And it was a place that I was hearing a lot of chefs talk about, but I figured that a lot of my friends who weren't in culinary didn't know about it. And it's still a really good place to go for a party of that sort. But I don't know, LA is filled to the brim with so many amazing grocery stores. We were talking about this earlier, but like it's really rare to live in a city where, I mean, for me, when I was private chefing and I would get like a text from a client or what have you, and a request for a dish from a certain cuisine or an event or whatever, and the ability to be able, if you're willing to drive a little bit, to be able to go source that ingredient and you don't have to like order ahead is like, for the most part, is very, very rare. So, I mean, I guess like thinking about other stores in the area, have you been to Laxey? It's other people call it by the other name Thai Costco.
Okay, cool.
And it's just like the size of an airplane hangar.
Cool.
Really is just like, if you are to start a Thai restaurant, you could like go there.
You could buy literally everything
in bulk.
kitchen equipment, all the ingredients, all the
everything
curries.
like that. There's like I did a LA Times piece about, there's a fish section there in which there's like 5 like rusty knives hung on the wall in the fish section. Each have like a date underneath. The earliest one I think is like 1998. And I was always like fascinated when I was going to this store, like what is the story with these knives? What are they?
Yeah.
Are they just from the fish section? Like who decided to put them on the plank and who decided to date them and like what's going on here? And so I like kind of took that as an idea. So the first piece I wrote for LA Times was about like collections of ephemera in grocery stores and how they kind of act as sun-stained museums.
Oh, no doubt. Did they have like retirement ceremonies for these knives on those dates after the Munger?
I guess like in my reporting, I didn't get a clear answer. It seems like the fishmonger who did that doesn't live here anymore. And, it was kind of like one of these things where it was like important to him. And it was like a very human reflection of like this person's story and very ephemeral. And he was kind of gone the next day. And I don't know.
I love that story. I mean, there's every grocery store has like longtime employees and they leave things on the walls. They leave like signage. And the fact that you're so interested in this is really cool. Talk about the requests that you received from private clients. I'd be curious about the types of cuisines or the specific dishes that they're like, Vanessa, like I'm having a craving for Oaxacan, salsa verde,
Totally. I wasn't getting so many of those requests. I was cooking like a lot of meatballs and like chicken parm and stuff like that. A lot of like family friendly food too. But I think like one thing that was really interesting is just the ability to, so I don't know if there was just like a little bit of an interest to be able to like go full throttle all the way and just say like, well, I heard you like this, so let me try this out.
But you would have a request for a dish that you felt like needed this special ingredient. And that's what got you into a market, Mexican market, Korean market, etc.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. Let's go back to the Wild Air days. You were working the line. What is your professional background? It's very cool that you're working the line. You're doing you're working for a chef staffing agency. Your career is very, very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I've always been in culinary in some capacity. When I kind of first moved to New York, I was working for this company called the Culinistas. It's a private chef staffing agency. And then, I was doing some like e-commerce consulting for a while for a few small culinary companies. And then I felt like a huge hack because I hadn't worked on the line. Yeah. And so, and I think if you're a curious person, you can do that job forever because you will never learn everything. There's so much to learn. There's people who dedicate their entire lives to a singular dish. And so after I hopped on the line at Wild Air and like learned so much, and I worked under some really incredible people and met some really amazing people. It was like a very formative experience for me. But then I kind of just kept cooking. And it's not to say that I don't enjoy it and have so much respect for the craft and all of these things. But I think ultimately like what was so special about me moving to LA and being able to like kind of do this is like I've always been interested in storytelling and using culinary as a storytelling vehicle. Not necessarily, I'm never someone who's wanted to open a restaurant or be a chef by any means. But that being said, I think that perspective is really integral to the reporting that I am doing.
Oh, definitely. You got to have some reps and just to understand what chefs do. Were you working on that hazelnut chocolate tart at Wild Air?
I was not working on the hazelnut chocolate tart, but I was I was doing a lot of shellfish, and I had this hat that said Ocean Navigator, and there would be times there would be like a mussel, clam, and oyster day, and so I would wear the Ocean Navigator hat, and I would show up to work and like just talk about bivalves all day.
It's good to be into the ingredients while you're like working that
Totally.
prep.
You have to be chipper about it while your hands are going numb.
Yeah, a lot of muscle cleaning is gotta be.
A lot of muscle cleaning. I got the muscles now, though.
Definitely the muscle memory for the muscles.
Yeah, totally.
Talk about some other reels or TikToks that have popped off, like that you feel like maybe specific places that you really felt you connected with the audience.
So one of the things that I'm really interested in about the grocery store is I think that like there are a few inalienable realities to the human experience. One of those is everybody's got to eat. So the grocery store is a space that everybody interacts with in some way. You have to. Even if you're ordering grocery delivery, you're still interacting with it by proxy. So in that way, it becomes kind of like a perfect composite of the community in which it resides in. And it also can become like an embassy of sorts if, it's a grocery store from a different country or providing products from a different country in a different country. Like when you move somewhere, like what are the first two businesses you build? You build a church and you build a grocery store.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, another thing I've been trying to do is really like pick kind of like topics and see how they relate back to the grocery store with the thesis that like everything does. So one of these things is I went down to El Cajon, which is a suburb outside of San Diego, because I was fascinated with this religion called Unarius. And some people call it a cult, but it's a religion or cult in which they believe in past lives and reincarnations in different planets. And it was started by these two clairvoyants, and they make these like wacky psychedelic like short films to promote themselves. And it's just like super trippy and very Californian and interesting. And so I had this idea like, okay, this is super interesting. I want to make a video about this, but how does it relate to the grocery store? So I went down there a few different times and found out that it is smack dab in the heart of Little Baghdad and El Cajon. So this wacky like intergalactic cult is smack dab in like the largest Chaldean Christian Iraqi community in the United States, if not in the world outside of Iraq. And they pretty much have no idea of each other's existence.
Oh, wow.
So I went to the grocery store that was closest to Unarius and just like interviewed people there and kind of noticed a lot of parallels between this Iraqi store and how they were marketing themselves and the Unarians and how they were marketing themselves and what they were eating and kind of like what they were talking about. So that was very fascinating. And I think it resonated with a lot of people because there is this fascination with like the occult and just like esoteric, like religious stuff in LA.
But also finding this Iraqi community too, who maybe had, it was its own, obviously, culture as well. And each were quite defined.
It's very defined and singular and like not related to each other whatsoever. No. But I'm like, where else? Like it's so American that these two communities can just exist side by side and kind of just like brush past each other and not necessarily interact. It's also like that's like a very Californian thing too.
Yeah.
And it was just extremely interesting to notice a lot of these parallels.
Did you link up with any Unarians while you were there?
Linked up with so many Unarians.
Yeah.
So many Unarians. I learned so much about Unarius. I was told that maybe I was like a fisherman in my past life.
Oh, okay, they really were linking
the oyster stuff.
Right, exactly.
The mussel stuff.
That's exactly. They were like, they knew from like, they put the pieces together, your hat and your time with the mussels while there, that you were a fisherman. Had any of them gone to the market?
None of them had been to the market, but they were eating hummus
at
their gathering, which was funny because it wasn't hummus from the market. It was a different hummus. So that was kind of like that was the thread between the two. It was like Place Beyond the Pines midway level redirect.
Back to LA, are there other markets that maybe our listeners haven't been to or would be surprised at the scope of them in Los Angeles?
Yeah. I visited this market a few times called Odessa. It's in, there's actually a few different locations. There's one in West Hollywood and there's one in Valley Village in the Valley. It's it's named after a city in Ukraine. It's like a Ukrainian-Russian grocery store. And it's not massive, but it's so bountiful. It's extremely interesting. I wrote this piece for the LA Times about the different candies that can be found in the grocery store. These individually wrapped little chocolates that are so nostalgic for so many people who are coming from that part of the world. Not because necessarily they like have such a fond memory of the taste, or they do, but as they've gotten older and their taste buds have developed, they're like, this candy isn't like amazing, but they have this like really deep connection to a lot of the kind of like folk tales and fairy tales that are represented on the packaging.
I was going to say the packaging is as important as the actual product. Just having that in your home.
Absolutely.
On your shelf in a candy dish is powerful.
Absolutely. And I spoke to, shout out the Sosa sisters who came with me, two really amazing girls who translated for me during this episode, who were telling me that in their household growing up, like their mom and dad would eat the candy and then they would re-wrap the little wrapper so it looked like the candy was still in there and put it back in the bowl. So there would be a little collection of wrappers in their house at all times, featuring these little bears and Little Red Riding Hood and swans, all relating back to different Russian, Ukrainian poems and folktales and stuff like that. So that's a really interesting spot. It's also a great spot to get caviar. It's a great spot to get like any smoked fish. They're making like fresh bread. They're making pierogies and all sorts of delicious prepared foods.
Odessa, 2 locations. You said Valley Village and
West
Hollywood. What's your production like? How does it work for Grocery Goblin? Is it a solo operation? Do you have a team? And let's talk a little bit about your Substack and how you're not just doing social video. You have this wonderful place to keep all the thoughts together.
Absolutely. It is just me.
Great.
Yeah, totally.
Respect it.
Me and my phone.
Yeah.
And my amazing mic.
Yeah. Does the mic have a name?
The mic does not have a name. Mike.
There we go.
Jasmine and Mike.
Jasmine
it's
and
me,
Mike.
Jasmine and Mike.
There we
on
go.
The road.
I'm into it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little involved. Like I try to like do like a scouting trip before, introduce myself to a few people, buy something, just like chat to a few people. And then I'll go back. What's been really interesting is like kind of like grappling with this idea of like, I really do think that it's the most helpful to have a translator on site in a lot of situations. So working with people who speak the language and figuring out a cadence with them, like how to, make sure that everyone's like story is being like,
I like that.
That
responsibility
accurately interpreted. and received. And I learned Premiere and I edit all the videos. I have an amazing friend, Cesar, who makes all of my my music.
Cool.
And then I have friends who kind of help me out periodically with filming if I need to be on camera or something like that. But generally, it's just it's kind of just me and the mic. And then usually the story, I'll have an inkling of what I want to talk about, but I really try to go there because I think you really should be doing this with any kind of like nonfiction or documentary stuff, or going there just like letting the story reveal itself a little bit more and not having a predisposed idea of what you're gonna explicitly talk about, unless it's like an event or it's a pre-pitched kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a timing thing. You want to like have like a little bit of an angle, but it makes sense. You
Yes.
want to meet people along the way. Great documentaries do that, obviously.
Totally.
It's good. And talk about Substack. What's how do you read it? What's on the Substack?
Totally. Right now, the Substack is like kind of a little interesting mix of both like fictional stories about culinary that I've been writing
that.
as just like a hobby. I've also, I do this project that I'm obsessed with. It's very inspired by this Hungry Planet book that I was talking about earlier, where I'll like put on headphones and some music and I'll go on Google Maps and I'll just scroll in random countries and find grocery stores. And then I'll go through the user submitted photos and like pick the best ones. And I'll like archive them on the Substack. And honestly, it has been performing very well. And people are really resonating with these photos. They're really kind of like haunting and like beautiful and human, like just again, like footprints, like digital shadow footprints that people kind of leave and like don't really think about, kind of like those knives, right? Left on the wall and not really like thought about so much. But I think that's the same way that these photos are kind of like coming up for me. So that's another thing that I do. And then also I've been doing a little bit of music writing, because I think if you're writing about food, you should also be writing about a lot of other stuff, and it makes your writing better.
So you're doing some album reviews?
Some album reviews or just like analysis.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm a recovering music writer myself.
Cool.
I started doing that before food. So.
Yeah, a lot of people. Jonathan Gold too.
Gold was that. Gordinier. There's like a
Totally.
lot. There's some some folks who did it, and I think writing about food is more interesting.
Totally.
Personally. But it's cool you're doing it.
They help each other. There's different language that it's parallel in a lot of ways.
Can we talk about Google Maps for a second?
For sure.
I
love
spend
Google Maps.
on my phone and on my desktop probably between 4 and 10 hours a week on Google Maps.
What do you do on Google Maps?
Oh, everything. I mean, first off, it's just thinking about where I'm going. If I have a trip ahead, I'm always looking at geography.
Right, totally.
I'm definitely looking at user submitted photos at a lot of places, in restaurants. I've looked at markets. I like to see distance.
Yep.
In non-America. I think I have a pretty good sense of America, but like looking at Spain, I was looking at Spain recently and just like how far things are.
Definitely.
I don't know. We don't need to talk.
No. I mean, it's like one of these like public utilities that people like take for granted, and it's like they don't analyze it so much or like understand that going and doing a little scroll around Google Maps can also like, I don't know, because like I'm not super good at geography, but like it's really like it's totally shaped my worldview doing this like Google Maps processing exercise. I think everyone should spend a little bit more time on Google Maps.
Oh, I agree.
Get to know the world a little bit better.
We'll see like how roads are built too. Like there's infrastructure questions, like how highways connect to cities and like the sprawl of cities.
Definitely the sprawl of cities, and also just like the patterns that you realize come up from country to country, or the discrepancies between countries, or similarities in countries that are like, across the globe, that you can understand through that.
Yeah. Hey, did you ever play geocaching games? Like those games where
God, yes.
Yeah, they're the best.
Wait, yes. You mean like where you hide something?
I was
GeoGuessr.
GeoGuessing. So
I love GeoGuessr, and I also love geocaching. Do you know about geocaching?
I feel like tell me more.
Geocaching was really big in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And it was a game, it still exists. I made a video about it using a market. Where you have coordinates and you have to navigate to those coordinates using like different clues. And then there's a little box, and you like take something and you leave something in the box, like little knickknacks or whatever. But people get really into it, and there's different like difficulty levels and different
It's like
clues.
Pokemon Go adjacent.
It's like Pokemon. It was like the first iteration of Pokemon Go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But chasing or
GeoGuessr?
guessing, that game.
I love that game.
You still play it? I haven't played
that game.
It's a great game. I'm gonna leave it there. I think like geoguessing is part of this Google Maps convo.
Totally.
Learn a lot, and looking at grocery stores is very cool. So you're building writing around the user-generated photos that you're finding.
Yeah, I'm like building some writing around it, and also
Cool.
just like archiving like 25 at a time.
Yeah. I've seen that. That's great. I like when you do that. What about books? Have you thought about writing a book? Have you been approached yet about writing a book?
Yes, but I don't think I'm ready to write a book.
Yeah, you've been approached. I'm sure people, the agents have hit you up.
I don't know what I would write a book about yet, but
I like that you know that.
Yeah, I could see myself writing a collection of essays.
Sure.
As a way to start, but yeah, I don't know. I'm reading a lot of books right now.
As you should.
As you should be.
I mean, it'll come to you, obviously. If you want to write one, you write one.
Totally.
I mean, we're in the business of making books at Penguin Random House, so we are always looking at folks like you who are ambitious, full of voice and point of view. Mm-hmm. But I love that you know that you don't quite want to do it now. That's like the best
Not yet.
move. Not yet.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. So what's the rest of the day like? Are you going out to the grocery store?
Yeah. Well, yes. I'm ready.
Or the next couple of days.
Yes. No, totally. I am going to a grocery store after this. I'm going to Savon Meat Market in Glendale.
Yeah.
I'm writing a piece about them right now for the LA Times that maybe will be out by the time this interview is out. That is about the kind of like generational divide, how grocery stores market themselves, and how like when the kind of store turns over to the next generation, how the marketing changes. Mm-hmm. And this market has been making the most silly Billy Instagram videos on the planet. They are so funny, and I stumbled upon them. And it's also a fantastic meat market, Armenian market in Glendale. There's 2 locations, and so I'm going over there, just trying to like tie up some loose ends with the piece.
Very cool.
Yeah,
a little last minute fact checking.
Totally.
Do you have expansion plans on the Substack that are gonna, in the next couple of weeks? You said you might have some things dropping.
For sure. I am going to be putting more long form stuff up there, and then also have a fun refrigerating series called Refrigerators, where I will be rating the fridges of notable Angelinos and asking them about their shopping habits.
I feel like you can nail this idea. Obviously, has been done, but I think with your fresh point of view and aesthetics, beautiful idea.
Thank you.
Can't wait.
I also am desperately looking for somebody to sponsor me to drive from LA to New York and tell the next great American story through the grocery store.
Brands?
Yeah, whoever. Yeah.
Do you have people working on your brand stuff, or is it just you?
Yeah. Yes.
We have some brands listening, and check out Vanessa's work. If you work in grocery or CPG or adjacent, maybe work in auto, it's a great person to collab with. I think you've got a great following and a point of view.
Thank you so much.
Do it.
Thank you. Me and Jasmine against the world.
You and Jasmine and Mike will be there too, riding shotgun along the way. I mean, that would be really cool. Do you have a route in mind?
I haven't really done the southern route so much.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting to me. But there are just like a bunch of places in America that I'm dying to visit that are interesting to me for a lot of different like anthropological reasons that I'm like, I can connect this to the store.
What's this? Where do you want to go?
I want to go to the Precious Moments Cathedral in Carthage, Missouri. Do you know Precious Moments figurines? You see them in thrift stores a lot.
Precious Moments, sure.
Yes. There's like a cathedral built to Precious Moments. And Carthage is really interesting because there's this like massive pilgrimage of like Catholic, I believe, Catholic Vietnamese people to Carthage and every year.
Cool.
And so there's like a really big pop of like Vietnamese culture and food in this like town in Missouri. And there's also a Precious Moments Cathedral. There's a video there.
You could hit a couple videos on that trip.
Totally.
I love that. Well, I'm going to continue following you. I appreciate you for joining. On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Vanessa, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
The best fruit.
Cherry.
Ooh, let's go. Are we talking like Midwestern, Washington?
I like a Rainier cherry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're good.
They're good. Andy's Orchard cherries here, really good.
Oh, everyone's loving Andy's. They're great.
Yeah, totally.
The worst vegetable.
Carrot.
Oh, tell me more.
I have a problem. I can't eat raw carrots. I don't like them. I don't think they're good.
They're too sweet for me.
They're
agree.
too sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I used to tell my mom I was allergic to them when I was growing up. She said, you can't be allergic to that. I've been feeding you that your entire life.
I mean, baby carrots are kind of the worst.
I just don't like carrots.
No carrots in general.
Yep. There's something
Not
wrong
even
with
with
me.
ranch?
No.
Are
Sorry.
you pro ranch?
Sure.
Okay, you're good with ranch, but just no carrots.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
What is your typical breakfast?
It's usually just a vehicle for me to be able to eat toast. So like anything on toast, eggs on toast, goat cheese and honey on toast,
Into it.
other stuff on toast.
What's the bread choice then for the toast?
I like a sourdough. I'm either going like Bubs or
Yeah.
like Clark Street here.
Super good choices.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best dessert?
I like soggy cake, so I like tres leches, and I like tiramisu,
Yeah.
which is not cake, but whatever.
I mean, it's like perfect
It's
texture and
soggy pastry, yeah.
I'm super into that.
Yeah.
I love that. A restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead?
It's a restaurant in upstate New York where I'm from called Daniel's, Austrian on Seneca Lake. And I just have like a very formative memory of eating a vinegary potato salad for the first time. And it was just beautiful. You could see the lake, and it was like beautiful, airy dining room, bunch of kids running around, parents like that were dear friends, and you would just like eat schnitzel and hang out.
I love that. So you're from the Finger Lakes?
Yeah, I'm from the Cayuga Lake is where Ithaca is.
Yeah.
Middle Finger Lake.
Middle Finger Lake, Cuca is cool. I've been up there. I love the vibe.
Yeah.
The wines are pretty good too.
It's like really remarkable. There's an amazing like infrastructure for winemaking, farmers, creating great produce, but there is a lack of like restaurants with perspective up there.
Yeah.
And I think that it's untapped and someone needs to do something up there.
Fully agree. We get a lot of press for like Catskills and Lower Hudson Valley,
For sure.
even Upper Hudson Valley. But once you drive 4 hours from the city, no one's going up there, chef-wise.
Hi. It's amazing up there.
Crazy why? Why? I wish that there were more people up there. I think it's just like a population density, not a lot of airports there.
That's for sure. But, Cornell has like one of the best hospitality schools in the country. And it used to be that like when kids would leave there, they would like start their first project in Ithaca before moving to a bigger city like New York. And they just don't do that anymore. And I don't understand why.
So you grew up near Ithaca? Or
I grew up in Ithaca.
So what's your take on Moosewood?
Oh, I mean, like, it's like my childhood, like all my childhood memories are eating buttered noodles and like the spinach basil dressing from
So
Moosewood.
ill.
And of course, like everyone has that cookbook and it's so important to so many people.
Yeah.
I mean,
So cool.
iconic place.
Iconic. You grew up going to Moosewood. That's so cool.
Totally.
Buried the lead with that one. I did. When you're craving fast food, where are you going?
Foster's Freeze.
Tell me about it. It's cool.
When I'm craving fast food, I usually am craving like soft ice cream and fries.
Yeah.
So Foster's Freeze, I don't know if it's just Californian, but there's a lot in LA chain. Delicious soft serve.
Into that. Is there a flavor of choice?
Chocolate vanilla swirl with rainbow
ew.
sprinkles. I love the texture of a rainbow sprinkle.
Have you been to Awan for their ice cream?
So good.
I just went yesterday. I don't know.
So
I had to
good.
talk about it. It's really good.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, and it's vegan.
It's vegan.
Yeah, it's really so excellent.
I love vegan ice cream. I mean, Van Leeuwen vegan is my favorite Van
For
Leeuwen.
sure.
So Kush Bouchard told me about Awan, and I want to go back today. It's
amazing.
great.
Have you had the coffee at Dayglow?
I mean, many times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love Dayglow.
I love milkshake coffee right now. It's
Yeah,
so good.
I love Dayglow. They're pioneers in the game. Few more. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
I mean, it's probably a city I've never been to or don't know enough about.
Cool.
But if we're going places, I've been probably Tokyo.
Yeah, word.
Yeah.
But what if it's a place that you just want to go?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I have not spent like any time in Paris, really. So I would love to
The
go
food's
there.
good there.
I hear there's something
you hear
going
there's
on.
some things going on
Totally.
in the 16th. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
I have to do this in 3.
Fair.
Okay, banh mi, po' boy, BLT.
Oh, I love it. Banh mi was number 1 in our draft for
Was
sandwiches.
it?
Oh, it's number 1.
What's your 3?
Banh mi, BLT, and I would say grilled cheese with not tomatoes, but with pickled peppers.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yum.
Those are probably my 3.
Wait, we shared 2.
We share 2.
Our big 3. 2 of our big 3.
2 of our 3. It's great.
You're in LA, sun, moon, rising.
That's it. Vanessa Anderson, the Grocery Goblin. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Matt Rodbard and me, Eliza Barbanel. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell, logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.